Hi, this is Jim from Board Visuals with Nicky Paraiso and John Jesurun for the play. Now My Hand is Ready for My Heart, Intimate Histories, playing at La Mama until April 7th. And Nicky is the writer and performer, and John is the director. I have some specific questions for them regarding the production and the creative process. I'll start with Nicky. When did you first begin to create or write this piece?
Well, a lot of this material I've been working on for a long time, actually. And I started just mining, as it were, my autobiography since the mid to late 80s into the 90s. So some of these stories have been sort of percolating in my brain for a long time. But this actual piece probably started coming together in the summer of 2018. So, and then it took me several months to bring it together. I worked with two dramaturgs, one who's actually in the piece, Irene Hultman and George Emilio Sanchez, and they helped me really hone in on this timeline. I've never worked that way before, and so that we worked chronologically. And then when John Jesurun came in, he even went further into the chronology and also sort of coaxed some stories that I really hadn't been thinking of as much as some of the others. And so it's been quite a working process, and the piece itself has only come together in the last 2 or 3 weeks or so, just before opening.
So, since most of your performances that you've done solo have been very autobiographical, what sets this piece off from the others in terms of its uniqueness or difference?
Well, for one, I'm not the only person on stage in this particular piece, and I asked for very respected dancer choreographers to be part of my process. And I also thought it was going to be quite a different piece because of their presence. But they kept saying, you've got to tell your story, you've got to tell your story. So I said, okay. And then it really didn't really take a formal turn until John came on as director. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. So, so there are these 4 other people: Vicky Schick, Irene Hultman, John Kinzel, and Paz Tanwakio. And they are a presence, a real human presence throughout the piece. And I'm very happy that they are. Yeah.
Okay. And I know you've worked with quite a few wonderful people in the past, including Meredith Monk and Jeff Weiss, Yoshiko Chuma. And how has your experience with them influenced or affected your own personal work?
Well, they are all each very unique individual artists who approach work very differently. And so Jeff is also an actor, besides being a playwright. And of course, Meredith, she began as a choreographer, but she always had this musicality that went along with her work, and the development of her own vocal work is part of that also. So, and then Yoshiko is a choreographer and works. She works with people who are dancers, musicians, performers. So also she has an eye for people who have different kinds of talents. So yes, I'm sure all of those 3 people have greatly influenced me in some way, and in some odd sense, perhaps, I'm a synthesis as a performer of all 3 of them. So That's all I can think of at this moment.
It was quite revelatory watching the performance when you touched on all these different aspects of the history of the Lower East Side and the performances that went on down here, because I went through all that time period.
Yes,
as
you
well.
were with Tom Murrin and many people that we know.
So it was very personal. I was very moved by the piece. I thought it was quite wonderful. So on to John.
Nothing to
John,
say.
here we go. So I have 3 questions for
Okay.
you. Start with what element of this play did you decide to tackle first as the director?
Well, actually, as I do with a lot of things, I just looked at it as this multi-dimensional pile of things that was presented to me. And so I actually, even though we did spend a tremendous amount on the time of on the script itself, the words, I was working on it all at the same time. With the designs and the video clips and working with the dancers, trying to manage them and to get input from them on how we were going to manage the space with dancers alongside of Nicky. So I didn't start with one thing. And actually, just personally, that the way to do a piece like this was to sort of attack it on all fronts, was the best way to handle so many different little pieces. So, I could never move one piece without some other little piece moving. So that's how I just slowly kept circling it and turning the screw more and more. So,
when thinking about how you construct the play, do you storyboard it or think visually, or are you more literal in terms of writing it down in words? Describing what happens in your directions.
Yeah, you know what? For this one, I have to say, a lot of times I write things down or make little drawings and stuff. I don't do storyboards or anything, but for this one, for some interesting reason, which is why it was such a great challenge to me, I kept most of all that stuff in my head, so that it was, all these things were floating around in my head at the same time, kind of like little characters or something that would say, oh, don't forget this, don't forget that, because there were so many little elements in this. That I kept them most of it in my head, and I kept kind of referring to it. The other thing I have to say is that I had a great assistant, Sam Im, who was kind of like a digital chip or something for me, because then I could ask him, oh, what happened here? What was there? Tell me this. What page is this on? And so that also helped with the stuff. So it was kind of a virtual storyboarding in a way. So
nice. That's great. And the play used many visual elements. So most of the filmic and stills combined very beautifully together in cooperation with the dancers and Nicky. So were those elements footage that you created, you put together, edited using Nicky's stuff?
Well, he brought us all these, I mean, it was, that process, part of the process was great. He brought us all these books of photographs from his family and his life, and sort of I just went through all of them trying to find the most compelling looking pictures, and because there were a lot of pictures and a lot of different relatives and different scenarios, so we got those together, which was kind of the basis of things at the beginning, and then we were able to find through Google Maps, whatever it is, the pictures of his actual house in the Philippines as it is today, which was kind of exciting. That was great. And so we just got them off the internet, and then I was able to project them. And then other ones, some things I had, I just keep shooting things for my own work, and I have groups of those things sitting in my computer. And then I was also able to access like a lot of that tropical stuff. I was able to get that off the internet, maybe shots of the Philippines and things like that. So that's how it all kind of came together that way. But usually, and the subway stuff, Theo from La Mama, Theo Cote had shot it from from La Mama with Nicky. I think some of it was your footage, actually,
Yeah, some
too.
of it was my footage.
That they'd shot, and which actually worked really well. So I just slowly put it together as we were rehearsing. I would just let stuff run and see what would go better with what scene, and eventually it all came together.
Nice.
So,
Yeah. So, in terms of both of you guys, I wanted to ask you. I know that you've worked together in the past on different projects. Chang,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we can talk about that work that you did and when that happened.
Yeah, it's terrible. I can't remember the year. It would have had to have been 92 or 93, I think. You were in Chang at the Kitchen, and you sang a duet with
That's right.
Frank Maya.
With Frank Maya.
From the Pearl Fishers.
Bizet, right?
Bizet, yeah.
Yeah.
And they sang this duet together. And Nicky played the character of this strange character called Dr. Ibanez.
And some of your work is actually currently available on Vimeo, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Okay,
you can see
great.
it on Vimeo, yeah.
So my last question is, what was the process for working between the two of you and the choreographer dancers? How did that process evolve? Or did it evolve?
Well, it was an evolution, I will say. I'll just say, and then Nicky can say too. I mean, Nicky. It was Nicky's idea. He wanted this, and a lot of people are going, "Oh my God, are you kidding me? You're going to get on the stage with these amazing dancers, and do you think is going to happen?" So that was laid really on my lap, actually. What are you going to do? So really the process was, Nicky and I, we would just talk about certain things, but the dancers and Nicky had already gone up to Mount Tremper and kind of done some kind of workshop stuff. And I kind of decided let's just start at the very beginning with nothing and have Nicky on the stage and the dancers on stage, just everybody just doing whatever they want. Don't worry about if it's right or wrong and all that stuff. So slowly, really by doing that and just saying, and I told the dancers specifically, you actually are the choreographers. I'm just kind of arranging it along the timeline and in the space, and I'm going to try and stay out of your way as much as possible. And so they had to kind of adapt themselves to Nicky. Nicky was really the main force in this. So on the other hand, I didn't really want them to be decorative. So that's why they're on the stage so much, and they really have a real presence, and they really support this structure of the piece in a very different way than a play would be supported. So so that's kind of how we did it. And then Nicky had a longer time with them, a longer connection with them. So also I knew them all from before. So,
Yes, so there. Yes,
You know,
I mean,
Makes a
it's a
big
small
difference.
world.
Yeah, that
yeah,
makes
it's
a
a
big
small
difference.
world.
Downtown
I
world.
worked with some of them, so
That's great.
I think one of the main things I learned was, it wasn't. At first, I said, "Well, you're dancers. Why don't you just move?" But what they have in common with theater people is they want to know the intention and what's behind it. So that took a lot of discussion in both the studio and then at home, when we were just having dinner and sitting around. So that actually was a very delicate process between all of us and among all of us, and I learned a lot from that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both. I can only say that I highly recommend this show. It's quite beautiful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks.